Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. If you are joining me here live, I am Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. And I hope that you are looking for me on the internet because I am getting quite a few things this summer up to date, both on my website. I have just finished editing my Love and Sex in the 21st Century video series, and that is there's videos 1 through 8 there. However, video number 6 has actually 3 episodes there. It really took a lot of doing for me to be able to show you how you can really have the relationships and the love and even the sex that you really want in your relationships that help build and edify you. And that's what we are supposed to expect out of love. Let me stop that little memory thing there. That is what we are supposed to expect out of love. So make sure that you are taking a look at the edited version now. So again, there's 8, 9, 10 videos there should be on that Love and Sex in the 21st Century. And so take a look at that and make sure that you are expecting, that you are getting the most out of your relationships. As men and women, we can only focus on our bodily needs, because when we do, what we end up doing is really feeling unfulfilled, unsatisfied, and even more than that, we feel like we have lost our potential as a human being to be the best that we can be, to be using our talents in all of the best ways, to be self-actualized, to have loving and again fulfilling relationships that edify me and that edify you. That's what we're looking for. We just got to check to make sure that microphone's on. Ugh. Okay, all right, so again, thank you for joining me. Let's see here. Let me get my little ticker going on there. So thank you for joining me, and we are going to get started. And so today we have our first episode of memory, on the importance of memory. So let's take a look. Again, you can find these, and I will be updating my website, www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Thank you for joining me. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here today, what we're going to be talking about. And we're talking about, again, the importance of memory. And for each one of these, in this series now, where I am trying to take a closer look at a healthy spirit. So this is episode 5, part 1 of the importance of memory, and this is part 3 of a healthy new you in 2022. If you recall, part 1 has several videos, and that part 1 that I have several videos on, we started with a healthy body, and then we moved to a healthy mind, and now we are focusing on a healthy spirit. And for a healthy spirit, what we're focusing on is principles of transformation. These are principles of transformation, because remember, what we are looking for is when we have great hope, right? That when we work hard, that we will have the outcomes that we deserve. When we have great hope that when we commit to our relationships, that we will have great love. When we have hope that when we raise our children to know the difference between right and wrong, that will pay off in the end. When we have that kind of hope, what we are planning for is for our futures, is what we're planning for. Hope is the belief that something will come about that we don't yet see. That's what hope is. And so when we are looking for real transformation in our lives, what we are doing is learning how to invest in hope. And we don't just want to invest in hope in ways that leave us feeling hopeless, that leave us feeling unfulfilled or unsatisfied. No, we want to invest in hope that we know will come to fruition, that we will likely see eventually, not likely, that we will see with our own eyes, right? And we know that hope can take turns along the way, right? We know that our tastes change. We know that our desires change over time. So hope changes as we walk down our journey. But if our hopes are left unfulfilled, then that journey becomes less and less desirable. And what we are trying to do here at Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit is get good health out of this journey. And good health means both mental health and physical health, which we now know also includes spiritual health as well. Okay? So thank you for joining me on this journey in part 3, A Healthy Spirit, all part of this series, A Healthy New You in 2022. All right? So this is episode number 5. Episode number 5, part 1, the importance of memory. So let's take a look at the agenda I have. I'm going to move some of these pictures actually out of the way here. I think I'm all set. Okay, all right. So for today's agenda, what we will be doing is we are first of all going to take a look at the review of our first set of episodes in Principles of Transformation, which were on emotions, associations, and truth. We're going to take a little bit of a review of the most important principles there that are related to emotions and associations. So that's the first thing on our agenda. The second thing we want to talk about is how accurate are our memories. And so, since we are talking about the importance of memory, we need to know, is it important for us to have accurate memories? And what we're going to take a look at is what our beliefs are versus what are actual memories. Okay? Item number 3 there on today's agenda is we're going to take a look at accurate memories and the problems with traditional therapy. If we rely on accurate memories for our therapy, what happens if those memories are false memories? All right? And that's what we are going to take a look at today. And then, as you may know, I have broken up each one of these principles of transformation into 2 separate episodes. And the reason why I'm doing that, I want to take a look at 2 separate episodes for each one, is to keep these just a little bit shorter because there's a lot of information. Remember, when we are hoping for transformation, we are really hoping for something that is effortless, right? As easily as it is for us to get angry, we want it to be just as easy for us to forgive. We want it to be just as easy for us to experience hope. We want it to be just as easy for us to experience peace and love and gentleness. If you take a look at the last episode that I just edited of Love and Sex in the 21st Century, it takes a closer look at those rewards that I just mentioned. Peace, joy, love, goodness, kindness, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If any of those appeal to you, then what I'm hoping that you'll do is you'll take a look at this transformational therapy to see how we get those rewards. I give you an idea in episode number 8 of my final video in the series Love and Sex in the 21st Century. So please take a look at that as it is finally edited. And now also let's move on and take a closer look then at memories and the importance of memories in transformation, right? Okay, so again, I'm separating this into 2 parts. And for our second part then, next Sunday, we will be focusing on part number 2 for the importance of memory. And that is going to include if memory is incorrect, why is it important? All right, so today we're going to leave off talking about the problem with traditional therapy and its reliance on accurate memories, which is leading you to then to understand and believe that our memories are not accurate. And if they aren't, if memories are incorrect, why is memory important then in transformation? So a really important question. And then next week we are going to also talk about how much time do we spend on memories in transformation. Now this is really important. I want you to think about this, because if we spend a lot of time on traumatic memories, isn't that going to leave you feeling very sad and very uncomfortable and very much like you don't want to continue with this transformation? It's not an easy transformation if we take a close examination of tragic memories. So that's what's also different about transformation. Remember, I keep telling you, transformation for love, right? For joy, for peace, that kind of transformation is as easy as getting angry when somebody is unjust to you. It's that easy. That's the hope. That's the promise. Okay? So keep watching these videos, all of them in the different series. You can see how I cross over to give you much better ideas of how to fully get this transformation, whatever it is. But we're always, as humans, searching for the same things: peace, joy, love, goodness in our lives, kindness in our lives, patience for other people, right? So we don't get so angry. Aren't we always looking for those things? The principles of transformation bring about these fruits. And it's the reason why spirit is important in health, because these are the fruits of the Spirit. That's why they're so important. Okay? All right, so, and then the last item on the agenda is we're going to take a closer look at the questions that we ask in order to get real transformation. There are concepts that we want to understand for real transformation. Oops, wrong one. But not only are there concepts, there's also a process for real transformation. Just like we talked about processes for individuals to give up addictions, there's a process, right? And then there are also principles behind that process. And that's what I would like you to understand. Remember that much of this transformation that I talk about is available through Transformational Prayer Ministries. You can go to their website, Transformation Prayer .org and find out these principles and the process. So I didn't make this up. I will say, however, though, that I do offer a great insight, as you will see, into the science behind why these principles work. And so let's go ahead and continue on. We are talking about the importance of memory in real, true transformation. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is that we are going to review the importance of emotions and associations. So, in our first set of episodes on the principles of transformation, we focused on the importance of emotions. And these emotions, what they do is they lead us to memories or associations, right? Psychologically speaking, what do we call those? We call them associations. And so let me give you an example of that, right? So and I did talk about this last week as well in more depth, but it's always good for us to get examples, right? When we, for example, experience an event that we enjoy. Let's say that our 21st birthday, right? So we experience our 21st birthday or our 30th birthday or whatever it was, and it happened to be a really great experience for you. And you had great music there, a live band, right? And there were people that you loved there that were celebrating, and you had delicious food that was there. And so there are many things then that will remind us of that event. And those associations are made in our brain, and they can be associated with things like feelings, right? So happy feelings then can remind us of happy events. Smells can remind us of events where we smelled those things, right? So again, at your birthday party, there was the smell of maybe barbecue because it was the summertime. And maybe there was the smell of chlorine in the air because you have a pool and everyone was enjoying the pool, right? But there also can be also smells, emotions that aren't necessarily bringing about positive feelings as well. Right? Let's say that at that birthday party, a relative got drunk and embarrassed his spouse at that party, right? So that memory then would bring about associations that were unpleasant, including unpleasant memories of the way that people behaved or the things that they said to one another. And also unpleasant things like the reminder of, even the smell of barbecue might bring about that bad negative memory, right? So when we make these associations are made across all of our senses. They're made across feelings. They're made across visuals of behavior. They are made across things that we hear that people have said, or the breaking of, right? So all of these things, and then again, like I said, the smells as well, or even the taste of burnt food after it was left unattended to. All of these senses bring about different memories. If you are a person who has a tendency to ruminate about negative events in your life, what you will do is, as we've talked before about chronic accessibility in a past episode on depression and behavior, episodes on depression and behavior and depression and anxiety, where we talked about chronic accessibilities. So if you are a person who then turns things over again and again in your mind, what you are going to do is recall those memories in the forms of all different senses. You're going to recall the memory in the form of a scent. You're going to recall the memory in the form of a feeling. You're going to recall the memory in the form of what you saw. You're going to recall auditory memories as well. All of your senses will come on board in different ways as you recall that memory. Part of the principle of transformation is that in the recall of those memories, here, let me step back on that. In the principles of transformation, yes, in the recall of those memories, what we need to do is we find them through those emotions that are associated with those memories. We find those memories. Remember, why are we uncovering those memories? Because they lead to the lies that we believe. That's why we uncover them, okay? How do we do that? Because we are resistant to remembering bad events. We're resistant. And even if we're not so resistant, because we ruminate, what we do in our rumination is we recreate events so that there are different outcomes where we look and feel like we are the hero, or like we are the one who overcomes, the one who is successful. So replaying those memories in that way, yes, we are remembering, but we are remembering in ways that alleviate us from those negative emotions that are associated with that event. We hope to cure it through our rumination. The process of transformation works differently, and that's what I want to teach you, right? So that we can expose ourselves to the emotions and the memories without it overcoming us, without it overwhelming us, in ways that we can be successful in overcoming those traumatic events for real transformation. All right? I had to get some water. Not Flint water in Michigan. This is lemon water. You should drink it every single day. Helps you absorb your nutrients when you, well, not when you eat. You don't want to eat with too much water, but in the morning helps get the acid levels up there. Okay, all right. Making sure the mic is on. All right, so let's take a closer look at this then. So, the first principle regarding emotions and associations is that we feel strongly about what we believe is true. So, this is really something that we want to try and unpack a little bit more, okay? So we feel strongly about what we believe is true. And so what this first of all says to us is that it's our emotions that really take over reality. It's our emotions and what we actually believe happened in that event, what we believe was the intention of the other person. It is our beliefs in that situation that actually guide our feelings. Okay? So, our interpretation of the events is what is critical for what we feel today. We're going to talk about why it's very hard for us to trust our memories from a psychological perspective. But what we need to know regarding emotion is this. Those emotions are those things that guide our behaviors because our belief system motivates our behaviors. Emotions are what we believe occurred. Emotions to move, to emote. So what do? They move us to behaviors. So this is the reason why we try and uncover emotions in the process of transformation. Now, one of the things that you want to remember is this, that emotions don't always have to be identified and labeled correctly. Through this process, it would be good if you could label your emotions correctly. That would be good. But through this process, what is most important is that you are constantly trying to connect with that emotion. Okay? And so, it is the belief and not the actual event that makes us feel whatever it is. Sad, angry, okay, diminished, right, guilty. It is actually what we believe and not the actual event that makes us feel a particular emotion. Now, this is very hard to understand. A perfect example would be, so you're telling me, Dr. Feravich, then that it's not that I lost my father that's making me feel sad, but it's what I believe about that event that makes me feel sad. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is in those circumstances, in those events where we might feel that sadness because we have lost a loved one, what we are talking about are not functional emotions, but we're looking at dysfunctional emotions, all right? So whenever we're focusing on real transformation, what we're trying to transform ourselves from are lies, not truths about our emotions. So there is a truth that we can feel very sad over a loss. That's not where we need transformation. Where we need transformation is when that sadness is affecting us deeply, when that loss is affecting us deeply years later, that we are unable to overcome that the emotion associated with that event. We call those triggers. So make sure that you're looking at that episode that I talk about triggers, lies and triggers, which I talk about in mental health. And I also talk about in this video series on a healthy spirit as well. So it's important to know that when we're getting transformation, we are not getting transformation from truth. We're getting transformation from lies. We recognize that there are lies that we believe when we are experiencing triggers, right? All right? Triggers are false beliefs that we have about events that have occurred, okay? We're looking for real transformation. You can always email me. Remember, some of this is not always that easy to understand. And if you have questions, please make sure that you are emailing me at Dr. Feravich, Dr. F as in Frank, ERA, V as in Victor, ICH, at healthymindbodyspirit.net. You can get a lot of this information free. It seems very complex, but I can help walk you through it. And then also, if you really think that you can really benefit from the therapy that I have to offer, and you're willing to pay an out-of-pocket expense for it, I can also help you, especially with some real traumatic experiences that you may have gone through that needs real close-up look at transformation. Okay, all right. So, the principle is we feel strongly about what we believe is true. And these, again, are based on typically values that we have. It is a belief and not the event that makes us feel a certain emotion, because typically one of our values has been violated. However, in this principle, we have to understand that no one makes us feel anything. If so, then how can we take control? We can control only our beliefs about a situation, right? We can control only our beliefs about a situation. So again, I'm going to move through these just a little bit more quickly. But in my last two videos, part 1 and part 2, on emotions, associations, and truth, you can get a more in-depth explanation of what we're talking about here. We want to understand that emotions strongly move us in a direction of what we believe. And in fact, it is the foundation for our beliefs. When we experience a negative event, what we typically do is we blame something. We blame how we feel on something, like having a bad day, or the fact that we are stressed more than usual, or that somebody else hurt our feelings, right? And so what we do is we believe that other people control our feelings based on what they've said or what or how they've treated us, right? Our heart beliefs then are the beliefs that we hold that are absolutely true about that event. So it really is true in our deepest heart beliefs that we are stressed, and that is the reason why we lashed out at our loved one. We really do believe that you insulted me, and therefore you are deserving of my retaliation. We really do believe that that is the cause of our negative feelings, of our depression, of our anxiety, of our rumination. We really do believe that it is another person or the events that's making us feel the way that we feel. But there are all kinds of programs that demonstrate that the only way that we can change our outcomes is by believing that we have control over them. And by handing over our control over the other individuals, we no longer have the control over our emotions. Those are our heart beliefs, okay? And then lastly, in order to identify our heart beliefs, what we need to understand is how and why we came to this belief. If we only ascribe the cause of our feelings to the current situation, it would make sense that we blame our parents or our spouse, our co-workers, our children, the events in our lives, COVID-19, the loss of our business, our neighbors being disagreeable. We could blame all of those things on these outside events. But that would cause us to stay in this perpetual problem where we continue to point our fingers and respond negatively to these events. When we let go of the idea that others and things are the reason that we feel the way that we feel, let's see here. So letting go of this idea that others or things or events are the reason that we feel the way that we feel can really be difficult. And this is the reason why we need to go through this process. By determining that other people and events are not the cause of our feelings today, what we end up doing then is taking control and letting go of what we consider in psychology to be a victim mentality. That instead of choosing the concept that there's nothing that we can do about it, what we do is we choose to walk through these strategies, these principles, in order to find out what is untrue in our heart beliefs. Okay? This is the process. So, remember what we're talking about now. So that was a little bit of a review of our emotions and our associations. We had the episodes number 3 and 4 were on these emotions and associations. Or episode 4, part 1 and 2. That's what we have. Episode 4, part 1 and 2. This is episode 5, part 1. And now we are moving into then how accurate, trying to discuss and find out how accurate are our memories actually. And so now here what we're going to do is we are going to look a little bit more closely at the science behind memories. And what we like to think is, we like to think that when we make up our memory, that we have all the puzzle pieces in all the right places when we put this memory together. But the reality is that the majority of the time, what we're doing is we are missing a lot of important pieces of information in our memory. Because we only have a certain amount of senses. We only are able to allow in a certain amount of information. And so in allowing this information, again, because our senses are limited, we may not have heard correctly. We may have only had this view of the event and not this view of the event. And maybe that was necessary as well, right? So our memories are missing important pieces of the event based on our limited ability to get in all the information in that's necessary and then process that information appropriately. Now also with our memories is that sometimes our memories are also misfiled or miscategorized. In our memories, what we have a tendency to do is not put the entire event filed away accurately in our memories, but what we do is we file like events together. And so those are kind of color-coded there. So events maybe that have to do with your birthday party are color-coded purple. And maybe those events here, just for this analogy, those events that are associated with your career are color-coded yellow. All right? So we don't file things as single events in memory. What we do is we file like events together. And so here in this picture here that I have, this analogy of this puzzle, that when we recall a memory, we may be recalling that memory contaminated with other similar memories. Okay, sorry about that. Got something kind of lodged in my throat there. Okay, so we are contaminating our current memory with data from other events. So here in this depiction of this puzzle, we really don't have all the puzzle pieces. First of all, we're missing some information, and secondly, the current memory is contaminated with other events. So we're talking about how accurate then are our memories. That kind of explains how our memory works. Now let's take a look at a couple scientific studies that have been done on the accuracy of memory. Remember, one of the things that I want to do here for you is I want to bring together my area of expertise and why I know and have an understanding of why these principles of transformation actually work for us. Again, the reason I'm able to give you this information is because I have a background that's in cognitive, social, and developmental psychology, so I have an understanding of how the psychology of humanity works, along with other principles, including principles of faith and transformation. Okay, so this study was done in 2000. We're going to see a whole bunch of different studies here that have a variety. Some of them are classic studies, and other studies are newer studies that have been done. A variety of studies that I've taken from my cognitive psychology course, from Cengage Learning, and Bruce Goldstein's cognitive psychology textbook, 3rd and 4th edition information that I'm taking this from. So you can see, and then there's going to be a variety of statistics that you have here. So this first stat that I'm showing you, or first study that I'm going to talk about, is from Stanley and Johnson and was done in the year 2000. And this is the basis for what we call a shoot, don't shoot paradigm. And so what you can see here is that the title here says shooting decreases details recalled. And so you could we've got I can't draw on that, but we have got 3 different groupings which we call independent variables. All right, so what are we doing? We are trying to take a look at and measure the percent of details that were recalled in an event. And there are 2 different types of events that occurred. An event where there was a shooter and an event where there was no shooter. We can see there that the measures for the event where there was a shooter, those bars are purple. The measures for the event where there was no shooter, those bars are gold. All right, and again, so what we're doing is we are looking at how much of the event individuals recalled. How many details did they recall when there was a shooting that occurred in that video and when there was no shooting that occurred in this video. So this is really highly important because what we see here is that emotions can play a critical part in our recall. So we have there one independent variable or one grouping variable where we have individuals who watched a video where there was a shooter and individuals watched a video where there was no shooter. Then we can see that they distinguished between details that were recalled about the perpetrator, details that were recalled about the victim, and details that were recalled about the actual weapon. So first of all, we can clearly see that fewer details were recalled in a shooting event than in a non-shooting event. What else we see there is that we recalled more information. Here, let me talk about that differently. We recalled less information about the perpetrator than we did about either the victim or about the weapon. And so what this means is that our eyeballs are on specific information that is related to what is highly emotional for me, the victim and the weapon. Okay, so we see then that recall is negatively affected by emotional situations. And we also then notice those things associated with the emotion, the weapon, and the victim more than we do details about the perpetrator. So, good information to know, right? All right. This next slide talks still about how accurate our memories are, and we can see here what the focus is on similarity. And so let's take a closer look at what the details of this study is showing. This study was conducted in 1980, and so this is a classic study on similarity and how similarity of a perpetrator or a victim influences our willingness to choose an innocent or guilty person. All right? So let's take a close look at that. So we've got two different situations here where we are taking a look at similarity measures. All right, so we can see in the first set of bars that the perpetrator of this crime was in the lineup. All right, and so we are looking at low or high similarity of this perpetrator when choosing whether or not the guilty suspect. Okay, so. And in the second one there, they are taking a look at the perpetrator who is not in the lineup, and therefore, what is the likelihood that I'm going to choose an innocent person based on low or high similarity to me? Okay? All right. So let's take a look at that very first set of bars. So here in this first set of bars, again, the perpetrator is in the lineup. And so what are we doing here? Well, we're doing studies to see how accurate witnesses are in identifying the perpetrator of a crime, right? And then this is based on similarity. And so, of course, what do? They ask individuals to participate in a study, and then they collect information about them, right? So demographic information about them. And then what they do is they watch a video where the perpetrator of the crime is either matching their demographic pretty well or very dissimilar from their demographic, right? And then again, how accurate is my memory? Am I able to identify the perpetrator of the crime, right? So of course, if the perpetrator isn't in the lineup, then any identification that I do of that perpetrator in that graph B that we have there is going to be inaccurate. I'm going to be choosing somebody who's innocent, right? We can see there that when that person has low similarity, I am much more likely to choose an innocent person, right, than somebody who has high similarity to me. Okay? Again, all of these individuals are innocent because the perpetrator in graph B is not in the lineup. Okay? But who am I more likely to pick? I'm more likely to pick somebody who is low in similarity to me. So imagine that. Who am I likely to blame when I am feeling, right, the stress or pressures of life, or that there is an injustice? Who am I more likely to identify as the perpetrator of that injustice? Somebody who is less like me. When the perpetrator is in the lineup here, what is the proportion? Witnesses choose a guilty suspect, right? They are more likely to choose a guilty suspect even when the perpetrator is in the lineup, or when the perpetrator is in the lineup, when that guilty suspect is less like me. Now, both of those, when the perpetrator is in the lineup, the percent of choosing a guilty suspect is not about the same when there is low similarity. It is when the perpetrator is not in the lineup and that perpetrator is highly like me that I am not likely to identify that person, right? Okay, so what are we taking a look at? We are looking at how memory is affected based on the similarity of that guilty or innocent person, right? Innocent person that I say is guilty, right? Okay. Let's look at another study. This study, you can see, was done in 2009 by Chen et al. And what that means is that there are other authors there that I haven't listed, and I will get that full list of authors for you in this edited version. And so again, we're looking at scientific evidence that demonstrates the inaccuracy of our memories. In this study, we are taking a look at what I called activation plus misinformation. Now, this is key to changing our memories. It's one thing to not remember or not recall something, so we have no memory for it, like in the puzzle pieces where we have blank or black spots there for the missing puzzle pieces, right? So it's one thing to have missing information. It's another thing to have miss or inaccurate information. So how does this occur? We've studied this in psychology, and we have come up with some really interesting studies to take a look at what happens when we activate a memory that we have and then add information, misinformation. So that's what that study is showing. So what they did was they had individuals who watched some of the series 24. If you remember that series, it starred Kiefer Sutherland, right? So back in the what, late 1990s, right? Early 2000s, 2000, that they had that series 24 starring Kiefer Sutherland. Individuals watched that series, and then you can see there was a test group that had questions right after they watched one of the episodes on that episode, that 24 episode, okay? And then what they did was they had the second group, the non-testing group, play Tetris. Now, what are they doing in this? What they're doing is either activating information about that episode, or they're distracting individuals from thinking about information from that episode, right? So what they're doing is they're literally activating that memory or ignoring the memory, distracting themselves, purposefully not thinking about the memory. And then you can see that both groups were given misinformation, and then the first group was tested a second time. The second group was tested on information on the episode for the first time. And look at what ended up happening there. You can see that this is the number or the percentage of yes answers when it should have been no. So, memory for information for the episode was worse for those individuals who took the test right after the episode. Why? They both got misinformation. Why was the accuracy worse for the testing group than for those who didn't test right after seeing the episode? This is called memory activation. What they are doing is reactivating their memory. And when we reactivate a memory, what that does is it makes that memory vulnerable for new information. Remember, we don't have all the information. But what we could do is I might fill in those black spots with misinformation if I recall this entire memory, and then add information to that memory. So this would be similar to recalling that birthday party, right? And when you recall that birthday party, I introduce misinformation about that birthday party. I tell you that it was all the fault of the granddaughter who came in there and who was trying to steal attention by telling all about her problem. Okay? And you had originally thought, well, no, the granddaughter really had a problem, right? But what happens is you recall the memory of the party, and in the recall, somebody gives you different information, misinformation. And what you end up doing is then recalling that birthday party with at least some distorted information. Now, of course, we don't know exactly what information is going to be distorted and what information isn't going to be distorted. It depends on a whole host of things, including things like stress levels, your feelings for that niece, for example, or granddaughter, the stress you were feeling, I think I said that, and also your senses, right? Your health, your vantage point. All of those things are going to contribute to whether or not you take and remove that information, those pieces of that puzzle, and so you don't necessarily have all of the right information. Okay? So, when do we incorporate misinformation? This is important. We incorporate misinformation when the memory is reactivated. Now think about this if you are ruminating about somebody who mistreated you. What do we have a tendency to do when we ruminate? We have a tendency when we ruminate to search in our memories for information that supports our thoughts, our biases. And so when we ruminate about this negative event, we are activating our memory, and then we are cherry picking information from wherever. New information from what your friend said, from back in our old memories where we had this event years ago with that person. We are cherry picking in order to substantiate our beliefs. Okay? So we end up then, this is how we distort our memories for events. You should watch John Oliver's has got a video on his, and I'm not going to get everything right with John Oliver. He's got his Last Week with John Oliver, I think that's what it is, and he does a special on testimony and eyewitness testimony, and how many individuals are falsely accused and sent to prison because of what we consider to be eyewitness testimony. How many eyewitnesses do we need in order to convict? How many eyewitnesses to a crime do we need in order to convict? One. And so we really want to consider whether or not our memories are really accurate for eyewitness testimony. And also consider, who are we likely to finger then if we are unsure about our eyewitness testimony? Somebody not like us. Okay? All right. Again, as we ruminate, are we then changing our memory of the event? We absolutely are, according to research. We absolutely will change our memory for that event. And when we add new memories for the event will be less accurate. In particular, if we continue to ruminate over and over and then add information later on, we are distorting all of those pieces in that puzzle. All right, let's take a look at this next study that was done, which also takes a look at activating our memories and then adding misinformation. There were two studies that were done that were basically taking a look at the same thing, and that was an event, and then how likely we are to remember that event if we simply add a photograph to it. So Lindsay et al. In 2004 added photographs to stories, which increased individuals' inaccuracy for that memory by, let me get the stat correct, by as much as 2 times, by more than twice as much. So it enhanced false memories when adding a photograph by more than twice as much. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the studies that they were doing, and this study was actually a combination of both Lindsay's study there and the second study that is listed there by Wade et al. In 2002. So these are combinations of information that we got from photos that we're adding to memories, as well as recalling and adding misinformation to memories. And so what Wade and colleagues did was they told a story about a 3rd grader who had put a whoopee cushion on the teacher's chair. And so what they did was they asked participants who were adults, they asked them about memories that were given to them by their parents. Okay? So we had participants who are adults in the study, who then the researchers talked to those participants' parents and got memories, right? And so what they did was they got these official memories, accurate memories from their parents. Do you remember the time in third grade when, Tommy got yelled at by the teacher for writing on the desk? Yeah, I remember that, okay? So, accurate story number 1, given by the parent. Accurate story number 2, also given by the parent. Do you remember the time that you gave your book report on, the places you'll go? Yes, I remember giving that book report on there. Accurate memory number 2. And then we come in with the misinformation, the false memory. And the false memory is about, do you remember when so-and-so put the whoopee cushion on your teacher's chair? And this is a false memory that never happened. And 100% of the participants said, I don't remember that memory. But how did they change that into an accurate memory? I was going to just cry if that microphone was off. How did they What they did was they showed them a picture of the third grade class. That's it. And in that third grade class, they had identified one of those students as being the student who put the whoopee cushion on the chair of the teacher. A false memory. And then what they did was they asked the individuals to picture the event by closing their eyes and envisioning this child putting the whoopee cushion on the chair of the teacher. So now what the individuals have is they have two visual aids. They have the visual aid of the photograph of third grade, which is of course no proof whatsoever that this event occurred. And then they also have the visual event of remembering that, right? So being asked to make a mental representation of it, and now they have a visual memory of the mental representation that they made of this. And what we found was that after implanting that false memory, that false information, in the first interview after that, I gotta read this, 35% remembered that false memory as an accurate event. And for those who did not remember that, they were asked again, close your eyes and envision the memory. When they came back for the second interview after envisioning this event, 50% remembered that as an accurate memory. And so you can see that this becomes very scary when we take a look at how accurate our memories are. And so let's take a look at, I've got one more for you, okay? One more. And this study you can see was conducted by Wells and Bradfield. And this study was done in 1998, and what they're taking a look at is how confident individuals felt about their memories when they got feedback about their memories. And so one of the things that individuals do in court cases is not only ask individuals about their memory, but they also ask them how confident they are in their memories. And so you can see here that individuals were viewing a video of a crime. And then what they were supposed to do was they were supposed to pick a perpetrator from the photo spread. And then they received feedback. And you can see here that they received confirming feedback, they received no feedback, or they received disconfirming feedback. And then right below there are the confidence ratings of the individuals on how confident they were in identifying that perpetrator. And you can see there that on a scale of 1 to 6, individuals who received confirming feedback, nodding of the head, right, felt much more confident than those receiving no feedback or those who were receiving disconfirming feedback. Now, that makes common sense, doesn't it? It just makes common sense that if you nod and agree with me, I am going to feel more confident about identifying that perpetrator. But imagine that this is not necessarily part of a lineup or being a witness to a crime, but let's just say that this is just part of your social media feedback loop. Okay? So now you are putting out there your beliefs in social media about, who's to blame. And when you get those likes and that confirming feedback, what does that say about your confidence level for identifying individuals who are the perpetrators of what? Of diminishing values, right? The perpetrators of the uprise in crime, the perpetrators of the rise in gas costs, right? The perpetrators of the lowering of our bar for the educational system, or the increase in feelings of victimization. Who's to blame for all of those? As we feed ourselves through social media, what we end up doing is becoming more and more convinced about who those perpetrators are. So once again, we are looking at a process of transformation that is reliant on memories, and what we're finding out is that our memories can be extremely, highly inaccurate. Again, take a look at that last week with John Oliver on our inability to give good eyewitness testimony. That's what all of the science was studying. Are we good eyewitnesses? Okay, so the last thing I said that I wanted to talk about was then what is the problem with traditional therapies. We can take a real close-up look at the problem with traditional therapy when the traditional therapy is dependent upon accurate memories. Now, what's the difference here? What's the difference? This process of transformation, according to the principles of transformation, it is not dependent on the accuracy of your memory. It's dependent on your heart's belief, the outcome, the interpretation of that memory, and then what that drives us to do. Remember, those interpretations, those heart beliefs drive us to behavior. And so when you find yourself in traditional therapy that is giving credence to your side of the story, your set of truth, remember this, that we do not have an accurate perception of what real truth is. And because of that, Sorry about that. Had to get, just had to look at something else over there. And because we do not have an accurate handle on our memories of the actual truth, for you to be spending all of that time determining what is truth and what isn't from that event with your therapy, with your therapist, it's futile. There are truths that others know and we know as well, and we have agreement about those truths. There are truths about ourselves that we know and others don't know, right? There are truths about ourselves that others know about us and we don't. They are hidden from us. And then there are truths that neither others know nor do we know. And these are mysteries, is what they are. To try and uncover the real truth when so much of that truth is by nature hidden from us, then that therapy that tries to discover that real truth is just simply feeding your victim mentality. And that's why that therapy is not healthy therapy. Think about it. How can that therapist possibly determine what is best for you based on the truth that you tell that therapist in therapy? Right? You, of course, are going to be hiding truths. You don't want to tell about the embarrassing things that you did or that you said, right? And many of those are hidden from you anyway. So, basing any real change, basing any real transformation on the idea that the therapist needs the real picture, the real accurate memory, you're just not going to get answers that way. You are not going to experience relief, and you are not going to experience the fruits of the Spirit that we are promised in transformation: peace, joy, love, goodness, kindness, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. We will not get those things through traditional therapy if that traditional therapy is reliant on accurate memories. Okay? This is Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Thank you for joining me. And next week, what we have is, let me repeat that as that is going. So thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Remember that there might be a lot of questions that you have, and you can always email me as well. Dr. Feravich, Dr. F as in Frank, ERA, V as in Victor, ICH, at healthymindbodyspirit.net. So lots of questions on real transformation, but I hope that you are beginning to see how necessary a healthy spirit is in this recipe for good health and well-being. All right, so next week we will have part 2 of episode number 5 on the importance of memory. Thanks for joining me.